Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Horror Room. I'm Travis Bruce, and today we're doing another indie horror spotlight. Today, I have with us, he does a little bit of everything. He's a director, producer, actor, and also a podcaster. And he's working on a new film right now that's called Ill. I have with us Brandon E. Brooks. Brandon, welcome to the Horror Room.
Thank you for having me, Travis.
It's an absolute pleasure having you on, man. So tell us a little bit about Ill.
Ill is a long story. It actually began some years ago. It was initially a short film called Sickness, and it ended up kind of becoming a little longer than we wanted to be. It was initially a smaller concept that just took place on a farm, and it was just kind of about not an undead film like people thought. I was always a fan of the Crazies, the Romero film, and I kind of wanted to do something in that type of reiteration. But it kind of bloomed. It ended up being like 30 minutes, and we were like, okay, why don't we just make it into a full feature? But then we didn't realize at the time like what type of an undertaking that would be to like add another 40, 50 minutes or so to the movie. So over time, it blossomed into a feature, but we had ended up finding ourselves probably a few years ago. We ended up finding ourselves with the initial format. We did it many years back. We're going back probably 10 years or more. We did a lot of it in SD. So anyone who knows about filmmaking, like that's kind of a forgotten format.
Yeah.
So and then a lot of the newer stuff we did in HD. So it ended up being the cut of it, like actually we screened it a couple times. It was well received. But distributors obviously didn't want to deal with the SD aspect of it. So it ended up being, I was like, okay, that put me in kind of dilemma. I still needed a certain amount of footage to get to the feature length portion of like the feature length time. So ended up putting together new scenes and kind of reformulating what the SD stuff I had, kind of getting rid of that and then utilizing that in another form, like a web series that'll be coming out too at some point. And then the feature length version, we're finishing up now. We're going to have a couple pickup dates of things, and stars Brian O'Halloran from the Clerks films from Kevin Smith, Katarina Lee Waters, who was WWE TNA wrestler, an amazing actress and friend, and a great filmmaker herself and screenwriter. And yeah, just a lot of other great people. Fallon Vendetta, who's an upcoming. She has a film Sucks to Suck that is a horror film to look out for coming up too that I'll be a little bit a part of. And just a great cast of up and comers in that film. And yeah, and we're looking to kind of have that out hopefully by Halloween time.
Definitely want to check that out. Now, how did you get into? Because I mean, you started off in acting. Now, what made you decide? You know what? I want to start making my own fucking movies.
That's a great question. I started acting at Weiss Bear and Ryan in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And I wasn't sure about it at first, but then once I got the bug after a few classes, I knew that was kind of the trajectory I wanted to take my life on. But there wasn't as many. This is going back to like the early 2000s, late 90s. So there wasn't as many opportunities in like the Delaware Valley, like where I grew up. So it was a lot of extra work with projects that would come in. So I was just like, okay, I'm a pretty good writer. I was always pretty imaginative, like throughout school. So then I just started learning to become a screenwriter because I wanted to write roles that I would want to play. I loved horror films since I was probably 2 or 3. And John Carpenter's Halloween's my all-time favorite. I love The Thing. I love The Burning. Just a lot. I mean, I just grew up just just captivated by all things horror. So for me, those were naturally the things I started writing first. And then again, you write some bad scripts, but then as I kept stuck to it, I really got better and better and better at it. So then I started getting hired to write scripts, and that helped pay some bills as time went on. And I still was doing the acting. I did stunt work as well for quite a few films and stunt driving for stuff like Miami Vice, the film version of it.
Nice.
And yeah, just over time, I was picking up jobs wherever I could. Started as a PA on different sets and just did extra work like when you start, and then just kept auditioning and getting little parts in shorts and then indie features. And again, it all just kind of kept me afloat as I went on years and years. And that's what I always tell people, even on the podcast, you have to be diligent and just keep moving forward, because it's a tough business of rejection and ups and downs. So yeah, but that's where it started. And I just kept, anytime that there would be, every time I would be kind of depressed or down, something would come along, a job would come along in one form or another. And that's why I was glad I kind of did a lot of stuff from the beginning, because it gave me places to go. If I wasn't acting, I could direct, or I could assistant direct, or I could do stunts, or just other things too. I kind of learned to do a lot of different things on the set. I would even do sound sometimes for commercials or for music videos or whatever. Just anything that would help pay the bills and just keep me in the business is what I would do it.
Now, are you glad? Because, I mean, right now, when it comes to indie films, the technology is affordable, the equipment is affordable, the equipment is incredible. I mean, you can make a film on your damn iPhone now.
Yeah.
Now, are you glad that you grew up and you started when you did, when, you started acting, you started learning behind the scenes before you jumped out and made that first movie, compared to I see a lot of filmmakers with no experience at all. They're going out and jumping and making their first movie.
Yeah, I'm glad I am. I'm glad. I always say I'm glad I grew up when I did, because I love the 80s. Everything about the 80s, from a cinematic, from a music standpoint. Even the 70s, a lot of music and cinema was amazing, especially in the horror genre, from Exorcist and the original TCM. But to answer your question, yeah, I'm glad that I grew up kind of in that it was like that little time frame that where digital was just kind of getting its feet wet. That's even why we initially did the SD for that film Sickness initially, because everybody was kind of still, oh no, you never make a film on digital. You're gonna shoot yourself in the foot, and it's terrible. It's Bush League, and we're like, but that's affordable. At the time, those cameras you could get those cameras like at a Boscov's or at a Radio Shack or something. You couldn't get, it was harder to get a 16 millimeter camera, or definitely a 35 millimeter, and then actually get the film. So we were like, okay, we're going to take this risk. At the time, we thought it was a risk. And then a few years later, it became the norm. It started becoming, Hollywood films started shooting digital, and then pretty soon those Panasonic DVX cameras were everywhere, like we shot on that movie, and then it was off to the races with digital. So, but I'm glad I started there, because again, film is obviously a beautiful medium, but it's also would have been probably a deterrent financially to start, because like I've known filmmaker friends that shot 16 millimeter films when I was starting, and they never even got to the post-production, because it just cost so much to get it in the can, and then a wallop of a price just to even like develop the film to edit. So I'm glad that I came in at that time, because it gave me that medium. It introduced me to that medium that just became the hot thing, and it's pretty much what everybody does now, because it is affordable, and like you said, you can shoot on phones now and win Sundance. So
easily, yeah. Now, right now, indie horror, when it comes to indie horror, especially, there's an influx of filmmakers, movies, projects coming out. What's one thing that you're like, wow, I'm excited for when it comes to indie horror? And what's one thing that you're a little nervous about?
You mean project wise, or just from
just a genre?
I'm excited in horror. I mean, I love quite a few genres. I love slasher. That's just always been the number one, I think, because of Carpenter. But I'm excited about to see in the next probably 5 years to a decade, the genres that kind of come back. Like me and my business partner, Tim Melican, Brandon Entertainment, like we have a lot of projects between us in the horror genre that some are kind of throwbacks to older times, whether sci-fi horror, even like creature horror, like we had more in the 80s with like Gremlins and Critters and things of those. They haven't kind of popped up as much in recent memory. We've had a lot of undead. We've had a lot of slasher. We've had a lot of supernatural. But I'm interested in seeing what comes back that is a little bit more old school, because there's things that were just kind of not forgotten, but they were things that we all grew up on that again were captivating. I love like those, even the campy ones like Troll and like Ghoulies and things like that. Those things that were of that ilk. And I'm interested to see what's pulled out, because we are starting to kind of go backwards somewhat with some of the filmmakers, like with X and Maxine and some of these like things that Ty West does. He has an aesthetic that is very old school because that's what he was influenced by, and that's what I'm influenced by. That's what Tim's influenced by, like those old school, even some of the Empire films that we watch all the time that are just kind of throwbacks to now. But I think people would welcome that because it's given something a little different to the horror audience.
It's something that you're nervous about?
Well, not nervous. I love that. I think the nervousness would be, there are things that I've written that I really love and I think could be bangers like on screen, but they are in that maybe undead or in that like the genres that we've kind of seen a lot in the last decade plus. So those are the things that I think about a lot. But I always think that like every director's vision is unique. So even if it is something that's slasher or undead or whatever, like the way I write, I always say I try to go left when a lot of other people go right. So for me, like it's my little take on a movie that somebody might look at the trailer and say, oh, that's just another Michael Myers rehash, or that's just another Crazies rehash. But Ill is a little bit different than all those things, just the way I go about it. So it doesn't really bother me, but I do think about sometimes, are people really going to accept it or just see it as a knockoff of something else?
Because I'm assuming as a filmmaker, the easiest route to go would be to go with the norm, with what everybody else is doing. It proven success, but like you talk about Ty West, you see some filmmakers who stand out because everybody else is going left and they go right.
Yes.
And those are the ones who stand out. Those are the ones who are right now, especially, those are the ones, because there's so much horror, but the ones who are standing out are the ones who are going right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just like Ari Aster with Hereditary and stuff like that. Like those are people that are going to have longevity in this game because they're doing things a little bit different. It's not that they're reinventing the wheel, but their vision is coming from a different perspective than the norm that we've seen in recent times. Same with Ty, same with a lot of different like younger up and coming filmmakers that have the influence, but at the same time, they're putting their own like unique blend of their vision on what they were inspired by.
I agree. Now you're going back to acting. You went back to acting. You have a part on a show that's an anthology that's on Tubi right now, and it's called High Fear. And you're in one of the stories, which is called The Streets Are Watching. Tell us a little bit about your part in The Streets Are Watching. Yeah,
The Streets Are Streets Are Watching is a short story that's part of the horror anthology, the horror anthology, exactly. Like you said, High Fear. But it was written by a good friend of mine, Anthony Cantonese. So he goes by Tony Goggles if you ever look him up on the internet. And he wrote this really cool like story that's kind of based on a real life character in Trenton, New Jersey. My character's name was Crazy Carl. And he's got this wild hair and everything like that. And he kind of walks around the city kind of talking to himself. And a lot of the locals are used to seeing him and just kind of just brush it off as like, oh, that's just him in real life. But character-wise, he's a character that has a very kind of colored past. He was a bad dude that like did a lot of bad stuff. I don't want to give away too much, but his family was murdered in front of him, and he kind of it psychologically just fractured him and just made him go insane. So now he's just spent years kind of walking around the city, just in this kind of perpetual funk, just speaking to himself, almost speaking scriptures, and just kind of just yelling at people randomly and carrying different weapons. Again, not really hurting anybody. But where we find him in this story, there's a young girl that's kind of on the streets as well. And this kind of comes from more of a supernatural spin, this story. And you think he's he's in essence after this young girl to do harm to her, but there's a bit of a twist to the story that kind of comes out at the end.
And was it hard for you to get into that role?
No. I mean, it was one of the best experiences I've had in almost 25 years of acting and even filmmaking, because it was a great set. It was great to shoot with Tony and that whole crew there, and it was just, again, people that know me know that I usually wear bandanas and I usually wear hats. So I actually took everything off and like had my hair blown out all wild and everything like that. And when I showed up, Tony was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." And again, I'm walking around the streets and they have cameras. So locals are walking on the street and they're like, "Can I take a picture with you? Oh, your hair looks great," and whatever. And it's just like, it was easy to kind of get into it, because those kind of characters are what, as an actor, that's kind of what I want to do. Like, that's why great actors want to do those type of parts, whether it's a Hannibal Lecter or playing crazy serial killers, or even Michael Myers or Jason type characters, or Freddy Krueger, is that there's a exhilaration of it, of being something polar opposite than what you are as an actual person. So for me, I loved it. I just ate it up. Those days we shot that was over a whole weekend, and I just loved doing it, because again, it was something that's so different, and people give you those weird looks, and it kind of also lets you travel into the mind of what this person, the real life. I even saw the real life guy walk by during filming one time.
Oh, really?
He kind of looked over at me and just yelled out something and kept walking. And I was like, I'm glad, because I don't want him to like I want to come over and like take offense or think that I'm trying to take his turf or anything like that. But it was an awesome experience.
Now, did you observe him? When you saw him, did you observe him a little bit and kind of was paying attention to his mannerisms and how he felt?
Yeah, a little bit. It was the last day of filming, so I mean, I'd already done a decent amount of the part, but I did see him the morning we were filming. We were at a little convenience store filming. He was across the road a ways walking and just yelling out, and I couldn't make out what he was saying, but just kind of seeing his mannerisms. I was doing a part when I had to walk up on the street. So I did kind of see him, and I saw couldn't really tell what he had in his hand, if it was a bottle or whatever it was, but he was just kind of waving along and just looking up to the heavens. And again, in that scene, I did kind of channel a little bit of that, because knowing that was kind of based off of this character, I didn't think I was ever going to get to see the actual person. But from a distance, when I saw him, I was like, okay, that's how he's walking. That's how he's looking up. And I was kind of already doing some of those things anyway, but it just kind of gave me an up close and personal look at like what the real life guy was. So
it's great. Everybody definitely shoot over to Tubi and check it out. Okay, you are a podcaster, and from one podcaster to another, I'm gonna give you and your podcast a shout out. Tell us a little bit about your podcast and where we can find it.
I had a podcast. I started it a couple of years ago online on the Indie Escape Network, which is still on, and those guys are great, Joe Ridgely and all of them. And but then I stopped it a while. Had some personal issues happen, and then I just it wasn't for me for a year or so. But I just got back to it literally about a month ago because there's a celebrity convention that we'll talk about in a little bit. But we decided to rev it up again to have the guests that are coming to our convention. So my new company, Brandom Entertainment, myself and Tim Melican are running. We're doing, it's called Brantum Live. And every Tuesday, Thursday, we're bringing on guests or someone that is involved with the Atlantic City Celebrity Convention. So our first episode was actress Agnes Bruckner, who was Anna Nicole Smith in the Anna Nicole Smith story. She's in horror films like Vacancy 2, Kill Theory, that are some of my favorites, like from an independent standpoint. Our second guest was Perry Shen, who was in the Hatchet films that Adam Green created, that whole franchise, and also was on General Hospital. And our last guest was just this past Thursday, was another amazing guest, Taryn Manning, who's in Hustle and Flow and was on Orange is the New Black and Crossroads with Britney Spears, 8 Mile with Eminem. So she was an amazing guest. And so, yeah, that's what we're doing there. And for me, podcasting is it's what I like about it is I get to kind of, even when I started on the Indie Escape Network, what my mission statement was to kind of showcase talent that I don't feel get as much light on them as they should have. So even the Taryn Mannings, the Perry Shens, like a lot of the guests we have at this convention are of that type that, yes, millions of people love them and they have fans, but when you turn on Entertainment Tonight or you turn on a lot of the mainstream things, you see what's happening with movies from Brad Pitt or Channing Tatum or Sandra Bullock or just huge actors, and you don't see as much about like a lot of the talent that are amazing and star in a lot of films or back up a lot of the lead actors in films. So that was where I wanted to kind of do. I wanted to have, like, my first guest was Courtney Gaines, who's become a great friend, who's Malachi in Children of the Corn and has had an amazing career. And Tiffany Shepis, who's another longtime friend, who's a horror scream queen and is on the show Picard now. But again, I kind of knew of these people when they started and I followed their careers. And those are people I think are dope, people I think that the world should know more of. So those are the guests that I got on, and I did these really I kind of fashioned it after Inside the Actor Studio, like asking them more about themselves. Tell the audience where you come from, if you have anxieties, like when you act, and just things that are interesting to me, as opposed to kind of the layup questions like what was it like to work with a given horror director or whoever like that. So, I mean, and those questions are necessary. We do those as well, but just more so to kind of get insight. Like, we feel like we all kind of know, like, a lot of the major celebrities, but you don't know as much about a Bill Allen who was Crew Jones in Rad. You don't know as much about a Ronnie Jean Blevins who was the main villain opposite Bruce Willis in the Death Wish remake. And a lot of these different people, even a Taryn Manning, who's had an unbelievable career, but you don't feel like you know as much about her as you may know about, like, Scarlett Johansson and things, people that are always in the media because of Avengers movies or other things like that. So
I agree. And I mean, that's the reason I started my show too. I'm a huge indie horror fan. I grew up on Trauma and Full Moon and all that shit. Yes. And like, I feel like, horror was always based off of the indie scene.
Yes.
It always was. And there's some amazing indie creators out there who are like yourself, who are putting some good stuff out there. And like, I just feel like it's going under the radar, and I want to shine the spotlight on. So I definitely give you a round of applause for what you're doing too, as well, man.
I think I agree with you, man. I think even the stuff that's excited me in recent years is stuff that is a little bit higher of a budget indie, but there's things like It Follows and The Void and a lot of the stuff that Tiffany does, a lot of the stuff that my friend Tina Kraus does. There's so many different things that kind of, like you said, fly under the radar. And even things that are a little bit bigger that kind of come out of nowhere, whether it's Ty West's work or other people like Ari Aster, they're still coming more from an indie angle, and then they're just picked up by Blumhouse, so they're recognized by a larger entity, but they still came kind of from the indie spirit. And then you all of a sudden know who these people are, and that's the stuff that really kind of, for me, that excites me, because I'm even hearing about this Abigail film that's new that people are telling me to watch, and I hear it's great. So again, those are the things that excite me about the future of horror. It's that independent spirit seems like on a bigger level, the IPs are the things that are king, because there's money to be made always off of Halloween and Friday the 13th and Child's Play and all of that, which is understandable. But for me, the things that like I said, that excite me are kind of seeing that gem that people will send me, like Uncle Creepy Steve Barton is one of my best friends, and it was with Dread Central and was pretty much the biggest horror aficionado on the planet, in my opinion. And he always sends me different links or different things, like, you got to watch this horror film. You got to check this one out. You got to watch this. And it's always something that I'd never heard of, and I'm just blown away by. And it's an indie horror film. It's something that I'd never, or I might have caught wind of something but it wasn't really on my radar to look up. And he's like, you got to stop everything. You got to watch this. And it's always something that grabs me, because those are the things that a lot of the things that are more general even if I enjoy a Scream film or certain things, it's kind of the same for me because I'm used to what the formula is. So exactly. I'm not surprised like who's the killer at the end, or that the main players for the most part are going to survive and everything like that. So whereas in indie films, there's no holds barred. Nobody's expecting anything. There is no usually big star that is going to survive. So you can go to the end of the movie and everybody's dead, or somebody out of the blue that you didn't expect to survive. So that's the exciting part of horror to me. So
I totally agree, man. I'm in the same boat as you. And by the way, listen, one of the things with my show is our goal with the Horror Room is to go to every single horror convention in this country. And I did not know about your convention. It wasn't even on my radar. And I live in Maryland. Atlantic City is not that far. I'm in Atlantic City, New Jersey all the time for conventions. So tell us a little bit about the Atlantic City Celebrity Convention.
Well, it's something that has been years in the works from myself and my partner, Tim Malikan. And we went around the country to different events, just kind of looking at how they're run and the structure of them and who's popular and just a lot of different aspects of what it would be. And we did a lot of research, and we talked to fans, and we talked to people who work at different events, and just kind of in lieu of maybe one day. It's something that I've wanted to do for years, even before I met Tim. But it's just, again, it's a huge undertaking. It's probably one of the most stressful things I've ever done. And I've made films, and I've been in acting and different things opposite people like Eric Roberts, and stuff like that is nerve-wracking. But this is such a big undertaking just because there's so many moving parts. But what we did decide on once we decided to do this thing was we wanted the first one to be what we kind of call our WrestleMania. Like, it's not a horror con. It's not specific to anything. It's a little bit of everything. There are people from horror television like Walking Dead and sci-fi shows like Roswell, but there's also Pam Grier, like who
nice.
We know is an amazing icon, and there's also people like C. Thomas Howell, who was Ponyboy in my all-time favorite film, The Outsiders. So again, there's a whole array of different people of different genres there's people in Puerto Rico and other countries that are coming to see. Good friends of mine, Mark Webber, who was in Scott Pilgrim versus the World, his beautiful wife, Teresa Palmer, who was in Lights Out and Warm Bodies and Hacksaw Ridge and just another amazing talent there. And so it gives the audience a little bit of everything. And this past week, we announced what my all-time favorite wrestler, Bret the Hitman Hart, is one of our guests that'll be there on Saturday of our show. So, and Brutus the Barber Beefcake, who's another Hall of Famer in WWE. So again, it's a little splash of everything for fans, and it's going to be July 25th to the 28th. And to speak on like what you said about not being aware, it's like that's kind of the issue that's like about starting up something new is your reach. It's like you're in Maryland and you're not aware yet. So that's what that's what the podcast we're doing is kind of about. So that the reach of the artist, when they share it, like Taryn and Perry and Agnes and every other guest that we have come on, that blows out to a bigger audience because it's their fan base that are then watching it. And then I went on a radio show this past Saturday, and we're just kind of revving up a promotional tour of press and TV and radio to kind of get the word out far and wide, not just the Delaware Valley, but there are people just who follow us from the Netherlands. There's an amazing woman named Sandra who just reposts everything, and it's just unbelievable. And just because she's a huge fan of the show Roswell. Which is again, so it's like, again, it's one of those things that when you do these things, a lot of the established events from the ones even here in New Jersey, like Monster Mania and Chiller, they have years and years of following. So they're going to draw no matter what, because they have amazing lineups and they're established. And that's really, we're just establishing ourselves and kind of paying our dues now as far as this first event. So we wanted to make it, like I said, something that has a little bit of something for everybody. And that's what we're doing. I think we have an amazing lineup so far. We have a few people left that we're gonna announce within the next couple weeks, and then it'll the lineup will be closed, at least for the moment. There's always could be somebody that pops up the last moment, which there are a couple people that the fans really keep asking us about that could pop up in June onto the lineup. But yeah, we're really proud of what we're doing so far, and like I said, this will hopefully get out to your fan base now in the horror realm in Maryland and beyond. So that's a blessing.
And I'm gonna shoot down there up there, and I'm gonna do a walkthrough video, and I'll post it on my website. I do it on my YouTube, like I do every convention I go to. But
appreciate it.
So I was just at Creature Feature weekend in Pennsylvania, this past weekend in Gettysburg, and it's a horror convention and film festival. Yes. And I actually did one of my first videos that I did. It was 5 things I hate about horror conventions, and I don't know if it's because you brought up a Monster Mania. I used to be a big Monster Mania fan. I would go to the one in Oaks, of course, the one in Baltimore, and I used to go to the one in Cherry Hill.
Yes,
I used to go to. But one of the things, I guess, because I'm 41 now, I guess is older, I cannot do big, large crowds. I mean, just people on top of people, and that's why I'm not a Monster Mania fan anymore. Sorry, guys, I love you guys, but I used to be a huge Monster Mania fan. So I'm telling you, as someone who goes to go to horror conventions, are you worried about getting too big till you get to that Monster Mania where people are like this crowded and you can't even have a good time?
Not right now, because that's what we want. That's what we want. We actually have an amazing venue, ACX1 Studios, which used to be a 4-story mall on the Caesars Pier in Atlantic City.
Oh, nice.
So there's a ton of room. So like they're really things are kind of strategically placed, so where it shouldn't be elbow to elbow as far as fans and everything, photo ops and different vendors and cosplayers and different things that are happening. So, but I do agree with you though. I'm not a fan of elbow to elbow traffic, because I've been to events where that's the case. More so, I mean, even some of the Comic-Con type things. Like I don't think I would ever enjoy, and it's no condemning at all of San Diego Comic-Con. It's just it's such a phenomenon, and when you know there's going to be probably 30,000 people, it takes the joy out of like an experience to me, unless I was there as a guest or I was on a panel or I was doing something from a filmmaker or an actor standpoint. That would be a different perspective. But as just somebody that's an admirer of horror and just comics and things of that nature, you would only be able to do so much in a day, even waiting in lines to like see a specific panel in Hall H or to meet someone specific. You'd probably take all day for one thing or a couple different things. And that I have impatience in me. So it's like, long lines just are not for me. So, and especially as I get older, like you said. So, and then the elbow to elbow thing of I've gotten elbowed in the back of the head, and it's not on purpose by people. It's just, again, when things are so waterlogged in these places that people can't help it to bump into you or whatever. So I do agree with that. It's just, I mean, as somebody who's a creator of this event, we welcome everybody and anybody. But again, because this is why we felt like this was the perfect venue, because it is something that gives us the space to spread things out and make sure everybody has a great experience. It's where a lot of the signing is right over the water, which is amazing, the windows and everything. So it's a beautiful view that everybody kind of can partake in, like from the special guest and from the fans and everything. So again, we want as many of people as possible and tens of thousands of people to come in. But it also is a thing where it's not a hotel or even a smaller kind of convention center where, because they have like 10, 20 years of knowledge from fans all over the world. If you're doing a Dexter reunion or a Sons of Anarchy reunion or any Scream reunion or something like that, there's going to be like just unbelievable amounts of people that are going to come. So it does get a lot of really hectic in hotels and things, like, just because, again, even those hotels are probably like kind of cringing, but I mean, it brings them business, obviously. But for us with the Atlantic City Celebrity Convention, like, we welcome as many people as possible. for as many years. And the plan is to do this, and even beyond it, we have other kind of genre cons that we want to do that are kind of specific. Like the next will be an animation con that's all animation films and TV and cartoons and things of that nature. And then there's an action-based one for action films and TV and a comedy. And there's a lot of different things that we kind of have laid out for the future of this convention.
Work on getting Jean-Claude Van Damme for the action thing. I will fucking be there. I will pay the fucking price. I'm telling you, I'm a huge JCVD fan.
I am as well. I'm a huge JCVD. Also, Scott Adkins is one of my favorites from recent years. I love Scott, and Michael Jai White I've gotten to meet a couple times. He would be a cool guest. Again, that's a whole action thing. Is something. As soon as I decided, I was like, we're doing an action con, and there's a lot of TV actors that, again, I grew up like loving their work from different shows. Because again, like I'm a martial artist myself, so growing up there wasn't as much on television. It kind of fit that, but whenever there was, people like Ernie Reyes Jr. and people like Brian Genesee, and there was a lot of people that I kind of focused on, because even Lorenzo Lamas with Renegade would do as a martial artist himself. So like that action one's going to be awesome, because that's kind of the kid in me is going to like look at every action star, whether it was B movies. I'm a huge Mark Dacascos admirer, like of all of his films, from Crying Freeman, Brotherhood of the Wolf, and everything. So we met him at a chiller last year, one of the nicest guys on the planet, and that was an honor. And yeah, just again, that's something that's going to be really cool. But and that's what we want to do. We want to just bring people. And again, JCVD that's an epic one that's on the Mount Rushmore. And people like Chuck Norris, and like I said, we have a whole list of people, and we have a way that we can go about doing it. Because over the years, I've been privileged to even interview a few of these people, like Richard Norton, and work with some people like Cynthia Rothrock. And so it's like, these are people that all are kind of connected in different ways. So bringing some of these people like Zoe Bell, or like I mentioned, like Billy Blanks, who I grew up to, like long before Tybo, like Billy Blanks was king of the kickboxers and Showdown and all these movies that he was a badass mofo. So that's one of the plans for summer of next year, an action themed Atlantic City Celebrity Convention that we're excited about.
That's awesome, because and Chuck Norris and JCVD, even Bo Young.
Yes,
they definitely do autograph signings. So,
I've seen them at different shows. Yeah, there's a lot of them that do, and then we're gonna pull out some that maybe don't, and that's exciting too. Just because, again, there's a world in which in my brain that thinks huge, where I want to see Jackie Chan and Jet Li and Sammo Hung is one of my all-time favorites. And just growing up watching, like anybody of my age, like understands like a time when there was little kiosks in malls, and they would have like dubbed VHS copies of like kung fu movies. So that's where I grew up on all the Drunken Master films from Jackie, and all the films like from like Fist of Legend from Jet Li, and a lot of this stuff, and Sammo Hung and Yuen Bu, and like all these Twinkle Twinkle Little Stars films that made me, just on top of being the biggest Bruce Lee admirer on the planet, those guys just totally, even Michelle Yeoh, long before an Oscar, was Wing Chun, and a lot of amazing stories like opposite Jackie Chan, like Super Cop. So again, for me, that's martial arts films and actors have always been like somebody that people that I've always kind of looked at, and I said, one of these days I'm going to work with Mark Dacascos or Gary Daniels or Billy Blanks or some of those people. And a lot of people look at me like I'm crazy. You mean Robert De Niro or Wesley Snipes? Or Wesley Snipes is on the list too, because that's Blade, and that's Passenger 57 and Drop Zone. So he's definitely on the top of our list too. Yes. So, but a lot of those kind of unsung martial art action heroes are ones too that I put on the list, and people are like, who's this? Then I have to educate them and say, here's a list of films you need to go right now and watch it, and then you can have a conversation with me about anything like Tiger Claws or any of these movies that were just, to me, I still have a library of them. So
love it, man. I love it. By the way, the convention is going to be July 25th through the 28th in Atlantic City. By the way, I'm going to have the link to the website down in the description, so go ahead and purchase your tickets. Brandon, listen, where can everyone find you, my friend?
You can find me on Instagram at SSE Brandon. It's SSE Brandon. You can find me on Facebook, Brandon E. Brooks, the name that's right there on the screen. And you can find the Atlantic City Celebrity Convention at Atlantic City CC. We keep it simple so people don't have to type out too much, Atlantic City CC. And on Facebook, you can just type in the Atlantic City Celebrity Convention, and there's an official page, and there's a fan group for the page where there's even more information about the con, like a lot of questions people are asking about hotels and the cosplay contest that's going to be on Saturday, and everything you can think about, like as far as we're also having tattoo artists there. So there's a lot of different elements to it that are going to make a great event. So, but you can find that on the fan group on Facebook, and reach out to us. And the website's brantham.realms.tv, and we'll send you the link so you can post it on the show. And we'd love to see as many of you out here as possible. Any fans of all, like I said, an amazing list of people from a lot of different things, even Twin Peaks, Sherilyn Fenn, Dana Ashbrook, that were major on that, and just other amazing talent from Walking Dead. And like I said, Roswell, for those members, there may be more. I'm not going to say it, but there may be more. Like, stay tuned to that. And just a lot of people. Richard Tyson, who's Kindergarten Cop in 3 O'Clock High. It's a good friend that'll be in the house. And so like I said, just a lot of great talent and good people, too. Really good people. That Miguel Nunez Jr., another, who was Juana Man and Friday the 13th 5, like the epic ooh baby scene. So, so he will be in the house. So people are excited about him. And just a really eclectic list of just dope people from wrestling. Gonna maybe have a boxer, have some MMA people. Squid Game, The Challenge, it was a big hit for Netflix. A lot of their castmates will be in the house as well, representing. So just, again, a little bit of something for everybody. So, and stay tuned for even more news, because we have some doozies that we have upcoming in the next couple of weeks. So,
well, I'm definitely going to be checking out, man, and I'm definitely going to get myself down there. Awesome. Up there. I keep saying down there. Up there.
It's all good. Yes. As long as you're there, brother. As long as you're there, brother.
Brandon, it's been a pleasure having you on, man. Listen, I'll see you in July.
Absolutely.
And you're more than welcome to come on anytime. Everybody, listen, go down the description. Definitely get your tickets. Also, check out High Fear right now, streaming on Tubi, and look out for Ill. Yeah, all right, everyone. Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming to the Horror Realm. I'm Travis Bruce. He's Brandon E. Brooks. We'll see you guys next time.
Thank you for having me.
You too, brother.